Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vinay Kannan, and I'm the co-founder at Skolarli. We are a learning experience platform for enterprises. So before we get into the details, right, I just want you to think of your experience while you were trying to browse through the learning systems you may have had in your organizations, right? Maybe every day, every week, or every month. How motivated was one to actually read through the entire contents, or even watch the videos, or listen to the audio files or PDFs? It kind of becomes boring, right? You kind of feel that you're talking to something which doesn't want to listen to you, doesn't talk back to you. And that's precisely what we're changing at Skolarli, where it's more of a personalized learning experience for each employee based on their band, based on their roles, and based on the KPIs that is defined by the organizations for their particular role. So we'll get into the details of how we're doing it, what we're doing, and how Elastic helps us achieve all the goals that we're looking at. A little about Skolarli LXPaaS, we call it as learning experience platform. Now, why exactly do we need yet another learning system in any organization? Precisely for precisely for the reasons that we mentioned before, right? So majority of the learning systems are totally disconnected. They don't talk to the operations documentations, something that Ash also mentioned, right? Doesn't talk to the operations documentation. It doesn't talk to the product documentation. There are multiple service agreements and HR documents, which is never really makes it to the learning systems. And fortunately or unfortunately, learning systems or the learning and development teams are the ones who receive the documents at the end. And by the time new folks are onboarded into the system, or even the continual education or learning that needs to happen for any employees, the updated or the refreshed data is never available in the LMS. So what do? You go to the documentation, product documentation, search for everything. And that's precisely what we're changing, and that's why we thought that there is a need for change in the way learning systems are done in organizations. So again, I mean, it's elastic, and there's a lot of talk about data. We've been listening to the data thing for the whole day. We all know that the old adage, right? That there's a phrase that was always used, at least about a couple of years back, where data is the new oil. Very recently, there was another seminar that I attended, and I was talking to one of the journalists in India, one of the most popular ones, and he used a phrase saying that data is not the new oil, data is the new soil in which everything grows. And I think that holds very, very true for organizations, because your learning systems are the one which has the repository of information, the current one, the previous documentations, and things that are deprecated and things that are not used anymore. So it's not a trend anymore, it's a basic necessity, and I think there's a lot of data that is being generated, more so now with generative capabilities that is coming into the picture. Now here's a cycle that continues, right? Data creates engagement, and engagement creates more data. So it's a cycle that keeps going on, and the more amount of data that is generated with the engagement, it improves the performance for every user in an organization. Measurement is absolutely important. We all have been in the corporates, and we know how valuable measurements are and how important those are. Without data, there isn't any traditional, or there isn't any trackable, measurable progress. Now, a very interesting concept that happens in the organizations are where there are learners at risk, right? So when we say learners at risk, people who are not really able to perform up to the mark, or maybe for some reason they are not able to give the entire productivity, or not able to meet the KPIs that is defined by the organization. So our system identifies who are the people, or who are the learners at risk, and what are the things that they need to do in order to perform better, or at least as per the expectations of the organizations for their defined role. So the fitment issues and all those things that you keep hearing about, fortunately, unfortunately, that is something that we keep hearing a lot of times. Those are the things that we actually address with the data that we are able to generate in the system. Continuous improvement, it goes without saying, there's a lot of continuous improvement. It's a cycle, data, engagement, data. It keeps on improving and keeps on circulating, and that's how it gets done. Transparency and accountability for any role, for any information, for anything that employees are doing, right? It brings in transparency and accountability from the data that we're able to generate. Now, when we say we are able to generate, it doesn't mean that Skolarli is the only system which is generating this information or these amounts of data. We collect and integrate with multiple other systems. It could be your HRMS, it could be your information system inside the organization, it could be a product documentation, it could be multiple documentations, and we integrate with them and then bring the data in and then present it in a format or in a fashion that is easily comprehensible by employees based on their roles and defined KPIs. So how did we start with Elastic? And why did we even choose Elastic? So while we were back then, when we were building our MVP, we wanted learning analytics to be part of the system, right? Obviously, everybody wants to see reports and everybody wants to see some sort of data that is presented. So it started with, because there was Kibana out of the box, so visualization was not a problem. We did not really want to build our own engine at that point in time in terms of visualization. So that's how we got into Elastic, or that's how we started using Elastic in the first place. Kibana was used for our MVP. Of course, we gradually moved out, and now we've got our own documentation, our own graphical representation in terms of the visualization and in terms of data representation and presentation. So that was our first journey that was our first jump into Elastic. Then we brought in AI into our system, and we tried with a couple of managed services. Being a startup, we're very, very frugal about the kind of amount that we spend on infrastructure, and that wasn't really working out for us. The managed services were exorbitantly priced, and we decided within a week to shut those services down. Then we used another traditional RDBMS with a vector plugin. The cost was great. It was manageable. It wasn't really very expensive. It was something that really fit into our budget, but the performance was not something that really was something that we expected. The performance was an issue. And that is when we realized that, late to the party, we did not know back then that there was vector support supported with Elastic as well. But when we realized that, we got into Elastic, and then in the ingestion speed and the performance was at least about 60 to 70% improvement in terms of the documentations that we were able to get. Setting up Elastic was a cakewalk. It wasn't a problem at all. There's beautiful documentations that's available on Elastic's website. It's pretty exhaustive. You have all the information that you need there. It's just a cakewalk in terms of documentations that is supported by Elastic. So it really helped us scale, and it really helped us do things faster that we wanted to do out of the box. Dashboards via Kibana, we've moved on and created our own graphical representations and dashboards. But yeah, to begin with, we started off with Kibana. So our key drivers with Elastic, there are 4 different functionalities, or rather 3 different functionalities that's supported by Skolarli, which is backed by Elastic, and that's what we do. Behavioral analytics. Now, this is something that's very, very important in terms of how users engage with the system and what they try to understand. We capture the intent of a user when they're trying to perform some activity on the application, right? You might want to watch. Someone might want to watch a video. Someone might want to watch, listen to an audio file. Everybody learns differently, and while the goal remains the same, everybody wants to perform to the best. Everybody's learning styles may be very different. I may like watching a video, and I may not even like watching a 1-hour video. It may be probably 30 seconds or 1 minute broken down videos. Some may really like to do the reading, right? Go through the entire PDF files or maybe the text articles and even listen to the audio files. And nobody really wants to listen to the audio files at one go, right? Maybe when you're driving, maybe when you're traveling somewhere, someone listens to an audio file. So the system makes it available for them in multiple formats. And while we do that, we try to capture the entire usage pattern of users, and that's what we do to build a behavioral pattern or understand the behavioral pattern for those users and provide the content that gels well with them and something that they feel comfortable reading through. So every user or every employee, when they log into the system, the pathway that they have for learnings and the contents that will be available for them will be in a slightly different fashion. And guess what? I mean, all the data points that we are able to generate from the system is saved in Elastic. Gamification. Now, gamification is a very important part of in-session training, right? In-person training. So we have a webinar platform which is able to support at least about 10,000 odd users simultaneously. And there are multiple training sessions that usually happens in organizations where these are in-person sessions. It could be off-site, it could be on-site, it could be in your training room, and it could be elsewhere. But there are multiple training sessions that happen in person. for multiple teams, and every team responds differently, right? For example, the sales team might perform, may like the training sessions delivered in a certain fashion. The engineering teams might like it in a different fashion. And we have gamification, something that we call as ARM. So ARM is our take on Kaun Banega Crorepati and things like that, where you can actually log in and place the questions and respond to the answers, respond to the questions rather with the user's answers. Discovery, we touched this point previously where we're using vector search in Elastic to ingest all the data into the system, and that's where we have been doing that's what we call as discovery with AI. Now the pretty reason is in fact, Ash just touched this topic a few minutes back while he was here on the speech with the things, right? There are multiple documentations that an organization usually has. There's product, there's operations, there's service documents, there's legal documents, there's HR documents. For example, a user may not really want to read through go to the 100th page and go through the 5th paragraph and 6th line to read something, right? It's very difficult. I mean, expecting someone to do that is not going to be, it's not a very empowering experience for any user. That's where it gives snippets and summary of what the entire document is all about. So I'll give you an example. So for example, let's say a sales executive, right? Sales executive goes to a client meeting, and the sales executive wants to know what is their legal compliances or what are the compliances about anti-bribery. Let's say, that's an example. So if I as a sales executive and if I am going to a client's meeting and then I'm inviting him or her for lunch, and as against if I'm going home after a meeting as a sales executive and I offer a lift to the customer. So this is a quick question. So it's a very confusing thing for any salesperson to know or even to contemplate. They can really quickly ask a question saying that, hey, if I do this, does it come under anti-bribery law? And the response will be a snippet of the entire document with the with the information as to what the policies talk about. It could be even older policies saying that, hey, back in 2021 this was the policy, but now this is the policy, so and so, different changes, right? So they definitely know. It's very easy for users and employees to contemplate, and they don't have to read through piles and piles of documents. So great, I mean, we have behavioral analytics and this gamification and discovery with AI and things like that, but what is the ultimate goal? What does this all amount to? Why do we even need to do all this fancy stuff, right? I mean, there's something that's out there in the market, so let's just use that as well. It improves the outcomes and it brings out positive outcomes, right? There's very little and very less of my word against yours, yours against mine, and things like that. It's all data driven, it's all information driven, and it's all available for everyone to see. And the responses remain the same for everyone, right? Unless, of course, there's multiple documents, which talk differently. That is where it can get a little hallucinating, So which is why we say that redundant information, conflicting redundant information in multiple different files could become a problem, and that is the case with majority of the other AI systems as well. A very interesting study by McKinsey, right, in the future of personalized learning back in 2021. They say that the data-driven personalized learning solutions can improve the learning outcomes by 30%. While this is great for 2021, we have observed in our own research and our own beta tests that we have done that not only does it improve the outcomes by whatever is the percentage, but it also massively improves the adoptability, right? Adoption is what is low. Think about all the times we had learning systems in our organizations. How many times did we as engineers or product managers actually go through the learning systems, right? I mean, I admit very, very few number of times. And even if we had to log in, it was only to update a certain document saying that, okay, this is a new release, last sprint, and I'm updating it here. So that's essentially how it was viewed, and that's essentially how it was used. We always used to think that, hey, I'm updating a document not for me, I know these things, it's for the rest of the teams and rest of the folks in different departments. That's traditionally how it's been, or at least majority of the times, right? People don't really go through the entire set of things. And quite honestly, it's primarily because it's not a very easy system to use as well, right? There's a typical flow and there's a typical navigation, left navigation, click on that, go to a chapter, go to a program, go to a lesson, listen to the video, listen to the audio file. You have to sit through the entire 1 hour video or half an hour video to even understand what the video is all about. And then you realize, oh, this is not what I was looking for. I wanted something else. And then you have to, the cycle continues and you have to keep doing that again. So with transcription and summarization and those things that's available out there, these problems have been addressed to a to a major extent, and we are trying to bring in with all those things pushed into Elastic, and that also becomes a feed to the general vector search or the AI systems that's available, apart from all the documentations that's uploaded by the organizations. This is how we do it. I mean, it's a very, very simplified view of what we do. So here's our system, Skolarli, and then you've got the employees there. The videos that they watched, the audios that they've listened to, the pages, the PDF files that they've browsed through, the PDF chapters that they've gone through, the traversal of different pages, page number 1 to page number 10, page number 10 to page number 100, 100 back to 50, and all those traversals is something that we keep track of. It's all pushed into Elastic, so we exactly know who's spending what amount of time and what PDF file, or even if it is a text file. I mean, text file is one thing, there won't be multiple pages, but we at least know what is the amount of time that they're spending on each of those things. And that's how we are able to analyze the patterns and the behaviors of the employees, and then recommend better learning pathways for them, combined with the product and process knowledge that they have, information that they have, which we continuously do with assessments. So this is where it shows that the personalization engine, right? I mean, it reads the entire behavior and understands, analyzes the entire behavior of a certain user. There's relational data, of course, because we need to know what is the kind of topic that they need to learn and what are the kind of products and processes that they need to understand depending on what their KPIs are as defined by the organization. And that is how we are able to recommend a personalized learning path for them, depending on their role as well. So for example, let's say I'm an executive, or maybe I'm a product executive, right? My roles are very different. My roles and KPIs are very well defined. There are certain things I know I need to do and I need to perform. And when let's say the same user gets promoted to a manager, the KPIs differ, the KPIs change for them, the expectations of the organization changes for them. So the same learning pathway is no longer valid. It has to be something different. And typically, right, let's say our appraisal season in India typically happens between March and June and July. So if I am an executive, and if my manager comes and says, hey, Vinay, great job, you've been promoted to a manager. I mean, it's not typical flow, but then yeah, you've been promoted to a manager. So I'm not going to come on a Monday morning and act like a manager, right? I'll still continue to work like I was working for the last 3 years or 4 years. I'm still going to perform like an executive. So those are the kind of things that we bring changes in, where we try to analyze what is the personality aspect of a certain person as well, and that is where the assessments come into the picture. The assessments forms a major part also of the personalization engine. Now, when we say personality factors, we try to understand every person is different. Some are aggressive, some are assertive, some are not very assertive, some are okay with a lot of things, and some may not really be very confrontational. So these are the attributes that we try to figure out, and then, of course, with continual assessments. And based on that, we provide a recommended learning path for them and what they need to do in order to perform their job better as per the definitions or as per the expectations of the organizations or the respective teams even. Again, some take on why gamifications are important. So University of Colorado gamified learning back in 2020. Of course, a lot of things have changed, but then the data still remains valid. Gamified classrooms are about 60% more productive and more engaging than your traditional systems, right? And I think we all can relate to this very, very well. Think about all the 8-hour training sessions that we had in the organization. After lunch, things get a little dizzy. In fact, I was a little worried that my session is going to be after lunch, but I think Ash lit the room up, so I think a lot of things were easy for me, right? So we are all aware about all these statistics, and it's all out there available in for reading and understanding. So when we talk about gamifications, we don't only talk about Kaun Banega Crorepati type games and polls and research that you run, right? There are contextual gamifications as well that we're bringing in. Of course, we don't have that now. We've got something called as PBL, which is points, badges, and leaderboards, which is a very easy and typical system that usually works for majority of the systems. But then we are bringing in something called as contextual learning as well. So for example, the gamification will have the content that they actually need to learn from and understand. These are the content bits of it, so that is something that we're still working on. Yeah, so why is it important in the first place, right? Why do you need to have games? I mean, there's a job to do. you're expected to do something, so why not just do it, right? So this is where it becomes a little more engaging, because interdepartmental collaborations become easier, right? When you have an organization-wide training, or even if it is a region or regional office-wise training, right? You have sales teams and operations teams and engineering teams all talking to each other. Maybe if it's a group game or a group gamification activity, they can all club to one single group. Depends on how the trainers and instructors actually run the training program, but this is typically how majority of the times it is done, right? So it also improves the collaboration between different teams. It brings in a different perspective. There's always a winning aspect, right? There's always that intent to win along with your club, along with your teams. So these are the things that keeps on improving, and this is what improves the gamification experience or the learning experience for users, for employees. This is a very brief example of what you see on the screen is how we implement the gamification. It is something similar to what we've actually seen on the the LinkedIn post that we shared, right, in the first floor. It's very similar UI. So all of this data, right, so all the aggregations that you see here, the total time that they've spent to answer any number of questions and the total scores that they have, these are all coming in from Elastic, and everything is aggregated and pushed into Elastic. Now, the reason why we wanted Elastic, or we wanted a system like that, is because think about a scenario where you have 10,000 users. I mean, 10,000 is not a big number in terms of number of records, but activity, right? I mean, these are personal, human activities. So where everyone logs into the system, and within 1 or 2 seconds is when we receive majority of these data points, and people can keep on responding, and people can keep on changing as well, not just with their options and the values that they have selected as a response, but also the system that they've logged in from, the session where they've logged in from, what are the different questions that they've answered, in what fashion, and all the aggregation is something that we present in our gamified system. AI-powered learning systems can improve the employee productivity by about 40%. Now, I think at this point in time, this was a research done in 2021, but I think by now, we all are, this is easily contemplatable, right? We all understand, yeah, okay, it definitely does improve, thanks to ChatGPT and the rest of the systems out there. So no data or no research or no phrase, no nothing needed here. It's all from our own experience that we know it definitely increases the productivity. And that's precisely what we are brought into the learning system as well. So knowledge system or knowledge discovery with SCOI, we call it at Skolarli AI. And so apart from all the documentations that an organization provides, be it in a PDF format or be it in any other format, which we ingest into the system in vector databases, we do a lot of webinar transcriptions as well. So all the webinar transcriptions data is actually pushed into Elastic. It could be a 10-year-old video. As long as it's in English, US accent, that's what we support right now. So as long as there's a video, even if the audio is audible and if it's clear, we can just upload it into the system, and within 10 minutes you get the transcribed data, and that gets into your Elastic and instance, and then that becomes searchable for any other user as well. So a user can search and say that I'm looking for a certain topic. Let's say compliance let's say compliance, or maybe POS training. A user can just ask for what are the contents of that training video and get the responses for the same. Now, this is something interesting. Curriculum generation engine is again something that we're doing. So it's not just for the learners, right? It's also for the L&D managers, it's for the trainers, for the delivery, for the people who are actually delivering the systems, right? Content creation is a very cumbersome effort. It's extremely painful. And that's where we help the content creators as well get the content, and also the quality of the content, right? So for example, if not many people are actually going through the content, we say that this is something that you might need to change, and these are the things that you need to change in the system. This is a summary of everything that we spoke about so far. It's generally how we've architectured our entire system. So we've got documentation, certifications, experience platform, enterprise tools. We've got the engine which does the content transformation. It's a unified UI for the users and for learners. And skill gap and comprehension analysis, right? So skill gap is something that I spoke about, where the personality attributes of a person is analyzed and things like that, and that's what we do. So what lies ahead? We started saving all the data and information into Elastic, and I think we're absolutely confident that even in future, right, when we're dealing with a lot of data, right, I mean, GBs and terabytes of data, I think we are very, very safe with Elastic, and it's been a wonderful experience with Elastic, and that's why we're confident that, we don't need anything else apart from Elastic at this point in time. This is our website. I mean, there's a barcode to our website. Anybody who wants to know a lot more or a little more about Skolarli and what we do, and if you have any training and development needs, I urge you to reach out to us. And so, I mean, we've covered a lot of things today as to what are the things that all the functionalities that Skolarli does, and what are the things that we do. And with Elastic at the back of our entire application, powering our application, we're absolutely confident that we should be able to do a lot more. That's it for me today. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
So when you are saying that you are injecting that and vectorize the text content, what else, I mean, is there anything else you need to do other than out of box what comes from the Elastic?
No, so we are not using the AI that's available in Elastic. So we've got, our service does the content embedding, and then that is what pushes into Elastic, and then we do the query. Yeah, we have another service that actually does that.
Okay, right. And
we are on a community edition of Elastic, so.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Right. So, second one is like when you are saying the transcript
right.
that you are converting into a text, I mean,
correct.
the audio call into transcript, right?
Correct.
So what are the specific technologies that you are using to make it happen?
So right now,
do you also summarize it at the end of the day, or just you leave it as a transcript?
No, so there are a couple of things that we do, right? Summarization is definitely important, and that is something that is definitely needed. So we get the transcript, and we use cognitive services for the transcript, and then based on whatever is the input that we receive from the cognitive service, we run our models to get the summary of that entire conversation.
Yeah. So one question.
Sure.
When you say there are languages that you are doing, the documentation and the videos
right.
can be in different languages.
No, it can. Right now, we support only English. See, the transcription cannot be done in any other language. Right now, it's only English US that we are supporting. But we are bringing in more languages going forward.
You're talking about vectors?
I just wanted to understand when he says different videos, like 10 years old videos, then it can be in different languages if you're talking about
right
India.
now, it's only English.
So I was just curious to understand how the language, those language transcriptions are getting
There
saved.
are services out there which does that. I think I keep forgetting the name. There's an Indian company which is doing that. I met them founder some time back. But there are services which do that. But the problem that we've not really gone through that step is accuracy is something that we'll still need to know, right? Because if we are recommending something, it has to be at least to a certain level accurate. So we cannot have an R&D system which recommends the learning paths for the employees, and that's why we've not done that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
How much is the cost saving like after you moved from managed service to self-managed, and what are the cons of self-managed?
The cost saving is pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah,
like
pretty good. It should take care for another 4 months for us.
oh,
So what we spent in about a week's time is good enough for next 4
any
months.
cons did you see in your self-managed service? Like, are you running into issues?
Not yet, thankfully.
What is the data?
See, our data size is not as large, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of presentations which talk about terabytes of data being ingested in a day. So we are only dealing with about 200, 300 odd GBs of data right now, till so far. So it's not really a large thing. And I think Elastic documentation is pretty exhaustive. I mean, if you follow the documentation to the T, I don't think there should be much challenges that we run into. There will be some things that we will discover along the way. Of course, when we start dealing with a lot of content, then I think we should be able to, give a better response. One challenge that we've seen is that when we have images inside a PDF file, that becomes a bit of a challenge for us right now. And there are certain documents which is not even a PDF file; it's just images scanned and, combined to a PDF file. Those are the ones which are tricky and challenging for us right now.
Okay, thank you.
Is it you saw it with the vector search?
No, not yet. That image thing, spoke up, but differently.
All right. Anyone else? Yeah. So now you can ask as many as questions. It's okay.
Just with the data backup, how you handle your data?
So we use the Azure service for the data backups.
So you take the snapshots and then take. Okay.
There are a couple of queries. Okay.
Sure.
So basically yours is a gaming platform, right? So
It's not a gaming platform. We have gamification in the system.
gamification, right? So what are the upcoming gaming like games or which is planned on the AI based solutions and such, and then
So
what is currently how you are leveraging that, and then what is the upcoming roadmap for you? That is one thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, second thing is about images. You said that is being a challenge for you, but similarly, any voice based challenges you have gone through recently. I mean, you said that only English is the language.
accuracy is the
prevalent, but
problem that we have in terms of transcription. That is where, because even in Hindi, right? I mean, if it could be Hindi, it could be Marathi, it could be Malayalam. There's a different dialects, and those are the things which actually is not very accurate for us right now. We are exploring options, but then we assume that we might not really need that a lot, because majority of the organizations that we are speaking with are traditionally traditionally have the documentations in English, so should not be a major issue is what we are thinking. And going back to your the first question that you asked about, right? I mean, I forgot. I mean, what was it? Upcoming. So we're not a complete gamification. It's not a gaming company per se, right? So right now, what we have is PBL, which is typical points, badges, and leaderboards. Points are based on whatever the activities are. And HR can define what are the things that they need to do to get a certain level of points. There's a reward system for all the activities that they complete, and then of course you see the leaderboards right now. Whatever we have, it's a typical kind of a poll kind of a system, right? Kaun banega crorepati, and something on similar lines. The next level of gamification that we are bringing in is contextual gamification. So for example, when you take an exam, right? I mean, when you do an assessment, you don't need to feel like you're going back to 10th standard or 12th standard or even back to college and taking a examination, right? People react differently. You don't really need to be thinking like that you take a exam. So those are the kind of contextual gamifications which we are bringing in. So if you want to take an exam, why does it have to be 1 hour at one complete slot? If you want 5 questions done now, 5 questions done later, or maybe 5 questions done next week, as long as you have that time. So that breaking down is what we are actually trying to look at. So for example, if someone takes a break, right? I mean, they can still take an examination at that point in time if they go. So those are the kind of things that we are working on, and that is the level of, that is the kind of gamification that we are trying to bring in. The content gamification and contextual gamification.